Hello everyone, thank you very much for being here. We're going to take 45 minutes of your time to present to you the opportunities on funding opportunities for 2020. NEXA and the IUCN are happy to welcome you here, and I'm going to give speak to Carole.
Good afternoon. It's a real pleasure for me to be here for this event jointly organized by NEXA and IUCN. As you know, research really needs and look for funding, so we will present a few, I would say, mechanisms, a few tools in order to give you hints and details of what could be the coming opportunity for this year already, but as well next year. So there will be a series of presentations, and feel free then to ask for a question or to come back to us later. Thank you.
So to detail the program, I'm going to start on Horizon 2020 and a little bit on Horizon Europe. Then Carole will talk about the BEST 2.0 and Life for Best program. And Kathleen from NEXA as well will talk about the LIFE program, and we will have Josiane, she's a focal point for Biodiversity in Réunion. Okay, so I'm going to start to talk about how we can collaborate with Réunion. We have a support service that I'm going to present, and then I'll give you the few calls that we have selected for 2020 in Horizon 2020 program. So NEXA, the Regional Agency for Development, Investment and Innovation, opened in 2014 and support services, and its main goal is to support our local research group to connect with European centers of excellence through collaborative research and innovation project. For that, we have three main activities, which is we construct our support services, mainly the support for the writing of proposals. So for that, we do training, funding opportunities, screening, so to find the right opportunities for our researchers. Proposal writing support from the development of the idea to the submission of the proposal, and we also help on the management of the projects once they are financed. So one of the important things that we're trying to do is to connect all researchers to European Center of Excellence, and for that we go through scientific exchange programs. I'll come back to that a little bit later. Networking event organization and summer school assistance. Regarding biodiversity, we're a few islands that don't have summer school assistance regularly, and that's something we would like to help develop in the island with our researchers and your participation if that's something you think might be interesting. And we also try to promote our research at EU level through the influencing EU work programs, Horizon 20 work programs, by trying to place our thematic in the work programs and in the future calls, and promote our research capacity and the outermost global position at EU level. For this support, we base ourselves on local funding schemes that aiming at fostering collaboration within the European Office for the writing of a proposal. We can finance a consultant that will be specialized in the core topics and EU project, and this is available to the proposal writing team and the coordinator as long as there is one Réunionese partner in the consortium. We also base ourselves on local funding scheme financed through ERDF, such as the mobility one. The mobility funding scheme aim at strengthening the incoming and outgoing mobility of researchers, and it finances air transport and local accommodation on a duration from 6 to 24 consecutive months. So if you would like to develop collaboration, maybe before having a Horizon 2020 proposal to write, it's good to spend time together, and that can be a useful tool. And in the same spirit, we have postdoctoral researchers that can be funded through ERDF here in Réunion. up to 24 months, and the funding covers from 80 to 100% of the salary of the postdoc researcher. Sorry. Just to give you an idea of how we are doing in Horizon 2020 project and generally European competitive project, we have on the last programmation 28 competitive program, and among these 13 Horizon 2020 project, 5 best trip that will be presented by Carol later, and 3 live projects and others a bit more, one on Interreg, 3 Interreg Europe, etc. And you can see on the left that 50% of our projects concern either biodiversity, conservation, or ecological transition, and almost a third climate change, natural risk or energy. So to tell you a little bit about our success rate, we have a quite good success rate of 37%. In comparison, it's around 14% in France and 12% in Europe. This is mainly due because we don't have a lot of proposals submitted, which is something we'd like to improve, but nonetheless, we still have a quite good success rate. So to wrap up a little bit on this first part, I wanted to tell you that Réunion is, as you know, open to collaboration, and as an EU outermost region and with a unique biodiversity outspot, we have exceptional research ground and natural asset, which I think you had a chance to see yesterday during the field trips, a dense and mature research and innovation ecosystem with access to forefront research infrastructure that you might have visited as well, a conservation practitioner network that is mature and experienced, and the available support services that I just presented to you. To talk about the opportunities we selected in the coming years. So mainly they come from the Societal Challenge 5, which is climate action, environment, resource efficiency, and raw materials. So we have 4 forthcoming calls. They will be open in March, probably. 1 ERANET, 2 research and innovation projects, and 1 collaboration, coordination and support action. So regarding the ERANET, it's a co-fund action on conservation and restoration of degraded ecosystem and their biodiversity, including a focus on aquatic system. So the deadline for the call will be 13th of February. The aim is to allow the financing of further research and innovation at the European level to fill the knowledge and evidence gaps to ensure the protection and or restoration ecosystem and the biodiversity. So basically this will be a call that will promote other joint call for proposals. So therefore the activity expected in this call is to put together the necessary financial resources to promote the joint call and to promote EU policies and objectives regarding ecosystem and biodiversity. The expected EU grant is about 5 million, and we expect only 1 project to be financed under this call. So the other call for proposal is monitoring ecosystem through research, innovation, and technology. This one is a coordination and support action project, so it's not a research project. The aim is to harness scientific advantage and bring together various actors to strengthen current effort and devise a structured and cost-effective EU-level approach to ecosystem monitoring. Among the activity, it is expected to provide scientific advice and practical analysis of the best EU-level monitoring approaches, and also to contribute to a more comprehensive and long-term monitoring of EU ecosystem and biodiversity. The expected EU grant is about 3 million, and also 1 project is expected to be financed, and that should be quite competitive. We have now a call dedicated to pollinators. So this one, the deadline is 13th of February, and it's called Addressing Wild Pollinators Decline and Its Effect on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And the aim is to assess the full extent of the pollinators' decline and its repercussion on human society and the economy. Among the activities expected, it is to develop tools, guidelines, methodologies to better understand, analyze, assess, and possibly predict the trends and causes of the wild pollinators' decline. The global amount is 5 million, and also one project will be financed. Advancing climate services. This call will be in 2 stages. So one in 13th of February will be the first stage, so just a concept note, and the second stage will be at on the 3rd of September for the full proposal. The aim is to create services that communicate and deliver bespoke critical climate information to better inform risk-aware decision-making and adaptation strategy. So this call is a lot more climate-oriented than biodiversity, but it will include the effect that it has on biodiversity. There is 3 proposed actions that your proposal needs to choose from, and one is mapping European coastal infrastructure at risk from sea level rise, detection and attribution of extreme events using artificial intelligence, and project around impacts overshooting. The expected EU grant is between 4 to 6 million per project, and between 6 to 8 projects are expected to be financed. Just to tell you a little bit about what we know for sure about Horizon Europe, it's going to have more or less, or at least a similar architecture than Horizon 2020, with a first pillar on open science, previously called excellent science, aiming at reinforcing and extending the excellence of the Union science base. The second pillar will be dedicated to global challenges and industrial competitiveness, boosting key technologies and solutions for EU policies and sustainable development goals. These will be divided on several clusters, and the cluster that will concern biodiversity mainly will be food and natural resources. 10 billion are going to be dedicated to that over the period. And you can see thematics such as environmental observation, biodiversity and natural capital, sea and oceans, among others. And we have a third pillar on stimulating market-creating breakthrough and ecosystem conducive to innovation. That's it. And just to finish, don't hesitate if you want to open a project with us or have summer schools, reach out to us and we'll do our best to help this project become to life. And I'm going to give the floor to Carole now for the BEST program.
Thank you very much. So I will present you a different type of financial support provided by the European Union. You heard quite impressive figures. I'm much more humble. I will present grant mechanisms that are dealing with small grants in order really to be able to be accessible and to reach to a diversity of stakeholders, not only in the European overseas, such as La Réunion, but as well in African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries, so actually the neighboring countries of the EU overseas. So I'm Carole Martinez. I'm working for IUCN. I've been working now for 15 years in EU overseas and marine issues. And now I have the great pleasure to be the coordinator of a grant mechanism managed by IUCN in order to unlock the potential, again, of actors, stakeholders in the different islands. So I will mainly speak about 2 main funding mechanisms I'm managing, BEST and BioPAMA. So I'm particularly happy to be here because actually the history of the BEST program has been impulsed here in La Réunion. In 2008 already, we co-organized the first ever conference on biodiversity of EU overseas and climate change. And the final statement, the message from La Réunion already highlighted the critical need to have a more tailored approach, a more accessible mechanism for the diversity of stakeholders of the EU overseas. So listening to this message, actually, we have been working closely with the European institution, the European Commission and the European Parliament in order to see how we could be, I would say, closer and more realistic about capacities on the ground in order to support small but efficient projects. So the BEST initiative is working at the 7 critical regions of international importance where are located all the EU overseas. When I say EU overseas, it is encompassing 2 main political status, the autonomous regions, such as La Réunion, but as well the overseas countries and territories, such as French Polynesia or TAF, that is located here. So this initiative has been actually acknowledged at the international level and at the highest level by the convention in charge of biodiversity and biological diversity. And it's willing to be a flexible one. What I mean is that it's at the opposite of a top-down approach. We let the different stakeholders defining the relevant project in order to really match and to address the needs they are facing in their islands. So you see the scope of BEST is very wide, so really let room and flexibility for people in La Réunion, in Mayotte, in Martinique, in French Guiana, in Azores, in New Caledonia, to define their own projects. It's tailored because, again, we want to be fully conscious that we can achieve great things with little amount of money. So we have defined different types of grants, from very small one up to 50,000 euros to medium one up to 400,000 euros. And again, acknowledging that most of the time it's a huge challenge to provide co-funding through BEST. For small grants, there is no co-funded requested, only for medium grants, and still 5% is really little, very small in terms of personal international effort. So to sum up in a nutshell, the history and the facts and figure of BEST, again, is targeting all the European overseas. And now we represent a total financial effort of 21 million. It started with a direct management by the European Commission, and through the second and now the third phase, IUCN is very happy to be the implementing agency. So we are implementing on behalf of the European Commission this grant mechanism. And this first phase is now piloting I would say an initiative funded by the LIFE program, because I believe, and the European Commission told us, that we made the case that there is room for big funds, but as well there is an important niche for small funds and small grants. So the European Commission is now convinced and is willing to make perennial BEST through channeling money from the LIFE program. And this third phase will open this year and next year, a new call for proposal for small grants, and through two main channels, open for autonomous region and open for overseas countries and territories. So in a nutshell, in order to give you the diversity of projects, this is a graph that shows to you that actually we are addressing through BEST action in terms of species conservation, in terms of ecosystem restoration, but as well in terms of better management of natural resources and ecosystem services. So far, we have been able to support on the ground around 90 organizations, and they are, for most of them, local organizations. And this is very important for us and for the European Commission, is really to support the local stakeholders. So let's make a little tour quickly about the different projects. I won't present all the 80 projects, but I will give a flavor. So in terms of ecosystem restoration, we have been able to fund, for instance, mangrove restoration in Wallis and Futuna, to pilot an innovative process in order to save the water in terms of natural resources in New Caledonia, and to work hand in hand with the farmers, but as well in French Polynesia to really address and to save two of the most threatened bird species there, and from extinction. This is endemic species, and thanks to the BEST program, we have been able to make remarkable progress. Other example, and going through another region, the Caribbean one, through BEST we have been able to support innovative approach in terms of coral reef restoration and conservation, working as well with research organization. In Martinique, we have supported the update and the completion of inventories of amazing fauna and flora there. Closer to us, with French southern and Antarctic territories, BEST has been able to support, I would say, this important research effort in order to better understand what are the significant ecological areas for the pelagic species, and this is particularly key and important for these territories, and supporting this huge effort in terms of marine conservation, particularly through the marine reserve. And now we know, and we are very happy that TAF is listed as World Heritage, so we are very proud to have supported a World Heritage site. Another example is in South Atlantic, where BEST has been able to support this ecological assessment and actually to make a real breakthrough for leading the local government to foster marine conservation there. So you can see quite different types of project. And let's finish with this little tour with this project, very interesting one here in La Réunion, in order to better understand the feeding ecology of bats, and by the way, to better understand the reality of the impact or not on agriculture and the fruit production here. So you see, we are addressing all the different types of ecosystem, of different types of threats, and different types as well of stakeholders and project organizers. So you can find more details about the diversity of project through our brochure that is available on our website. You will find there as well small articles presenting the project and small videos done by the project leaders as well. So the second interesting funding mechanism is BioPharma. This one actually has been inspired by BEST and the European Commission and its direction in charge of cooperation and development decided to as well develop a small and medium grants mechanism for African, Caribbean and Pacific countries stakeholders. The total budget of this new funding mechanism is 21 million. It's open to all ACP countries, organized in 6 regions. And it's aiming to support the 2 other components of BioPharma related to a reference information system and as well the development of regional observatories. So BioPharma is mainly here dealing with protected areas, with management and governance of protected and I would say now conserved areas according to the new wording adopted at the international level. And it's willing both to support the national and the local level and particularly to support local communities on the ground. Again, in order really to support the diversity of living forces and diversity of stakeholders. Different types of grants are available through BioPharma, from very small one in order really to support small organizations to medium grants. So for BioPharma, a first call for medium grants has been opened very recently on the 21st of June. You can find very useful information about criteria eligibility, process, etc. on the website. What is important is that for supporting conservation in ACP countries, the ACP organizations are of course eligible, but the European Union member states organizations are as well eligible. So this is willing to foster cooperation between EU organization and ACP organization. So for this first call, about 7 million euros are available. And again, in order really to understand that it's really a real challenge to provide the co-funding, you can see the European Union is willing to fund up to 95% of the total cost. So this is quite interesting when you are obliged to find only 5% of your total budget. When we speak about grant mechanism, there is an important, I would say, thing to specify that as implementing agency, we don't see stakeholders are only grantees. Actually, we want to develop a real partnership with our beneficiaries. So this diagram shows that we provide financial support, but the grantees are becoming actually our partners because all the projects and their results and the data and information they will develop will be used by the European Union, but as well by the CBD, in order to contribute to the global monitoring in terms of how we can achieve the regional and global targets. So again, there will be a full work of capitalization where we will develop a dialogue with all the grantees, and we will monitor with them the results on the ground in order to see how we can really make progress or not in terms of island conservation. So with that, I thank you very much. I stay obviously available for any further question, and you can find more details on our IUCN website, but as well the dedicated website for BEST and for Burpama. Thank you.
So Kathleen from NEXA on the LIFE program, sorry.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathleen Sibel, and I am with Fanny working in NEXA. So we'll talk about the LIFE program. So what is the LIFE program? It is an EU funding instrument for the environment and climate change. So it's been created since 1992. And the current funding period is between 2014 till 2020 and has an overall budget of 3.4 billion euro. So who can apply to a LIFE program? So anyone registered in the EU can make a proposal for LIFE. There's different type of projects, so for traditional, integrated, preparatory, and technical assistance projects under two sub-programs, either environment or climate action. So what about the amount of funding? So a project can be between 3 to 6 million euro. In general, can last from 3 to 5, but 9 years maximum. But if a project is less than 800,000 euro, it won't be eligible. And also, what is very key criteria to apply for LIFE program is there should be a part of co-funding from the coordination project institution. And I would show up next about the percentage of co-funding that LIFE would generate, but also the institution should be able to do. So the LIFE program divided into an environmental program. So the environment program talks about nature and biodiversity. So here LIFE provides 60% of the budget. Environment and resource efficiency, as well as environmental governance and information. So what is included into the nature and biodiversity section? It includes projects oriented towards biodiversity conservation at large, in particular areas of biodiversity, habitat and species. Also, before I continue, I should mention that LIFE program is our action-oriented applied project. Compared to what Fanny explained, Edge 2020 is oriented towards research, but LIFE program is more on-the-ground applied actions. So coming back to environmental program, it also includes the implementation of EU directives on birds and habitats or the EU biodiversity strategical project or implementation of the Natura 2000 network. In terms of project related to environment and resource efficiency, this is related to air, chemicals, everything, well, overbroad when we talk about environment, whether it is urban management or developing a demonstration project, but also trying to find best solution and practices. In terms of governance and information, so this is related to more lobbying project or raising awareness project related to environment or biodiversity at large. So here we go. In terms of climate actions, so the second program is related mainly to climate change. 3 different sections: climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, and again, climate governance and information. So which type of project can we devise in terms of climate change mitigation? So we talk about here areas of renewable energy, energy efficiency, farming, land use, peatland management, but also action granted for best practices related to the reduction of greenhouse emission and the implementation of EU policy law, so on and so forth. Climate action related to climate change adaptation. So here we talk about projects related to areas of resilience to water efficiency, droughts, forest fires, economic sectors. But I wanted to point out also when each and every year the EU or LIFE program adapt or can provide with new priority work areas. For example, for this year, 2019, for projects related to climate change, when we talk about priority area, there's a new priority area now, talking about, including this time, forest adaptation here, to increase its resilience to climate change, impacts such as forest fire risk, pest outbreaks, or prolonged droughts, but also project related to the management of invasive species. So this you have to take into account when you read the application guideline from one year to the other. Some priority areas may change and might fit you. And also the third part is climate governance and information. So it's always related to awareness, lobbying, and EU policy related to climate change overall. So who can apply? You have to be a public body operating under a national government authority, for example, a local authority, national administration. You can be as well private commercial organization or an NGO. But compared to other EU funding sources for a LIFE project, it's quite flexible because you can be on your own as a own institution to implement the project, but you can also decide to join forces and collaborate with other institutions from your own country or from different countries. So how does it work? So you would need a project leader among several partners, but it would be referred as the main coordinating beneficiary. Other partners can contribute, but do not leave the project, so then they are called associated beneficiaries. But these associated beneficiaries must make sure that they take into account few of the project action and must contribute financially to the project. However, if you're based outside the EU, you can contribute to a project as associated beneficiary only. And your actions under the project are actions that are necessary for achieving the environmental or climate goals of the EU. So that's the exception. So how to apply? So you can go online and you would find several guidelines depending on which type of project you are choosing. Classically, most projects fall into traditional traditional projects, but also you can go and favor action-oriented grants for integrated projects. Classically, when you have to submit for action grant or integrated projects, you need to start by writing a concept note, and if your concept note is accepted, then you have to complete the full proposal. Also, you have, in terms of different type of project, you have action grants for preparatory and capacity building projects. So you can follow the guidelines on the EU website, or other type of projects are related to NGO operating grants. In terms of call to come for the climate action sub-program, these are the dates for the future calls. So they are all open for now. For the climate programs, there's no concept note, but directly drafting the full proposal, deadline for 12th of September. However, for the environmental sub-program, for 2019, all the calls are closed except for this one. But these are indicative dates for 2020. Normally, it's around April to June 2020. So should you wish to collaborate with Réunion Island in drafting or being a partner organization on a specific project, please don't hesitate to write to NEXA, to me or to Fanny. I'll be here during IB today and tomorrow. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Kathleen. Josiane is going to present to us the biodiverse climate change and the biodiversity call.
Good morning, everybody. Just to introduce myself in a few words, I've been working for the Region Council of Réunion for 16 years, and among the tasks, I coordinated an ERANET entitled Net Biome, started in 2007 and devoted to tropical and subtropical biodiversity, gathering most of autonomous region and OCTs. And this ERANET integrated another one, well-known Biodiversa. Biodiversa is funded under Horizon 2020, started in 2015, and among partners we can mention some of autonomous region and OCTs, Région Guadeloupe, Région Réunion, Azores, Canary Island, and New Caledonia. This is the reason why I'm going to tell you in few words the call launched under Biodiversa umbrella on the overall field of biodiversity and climate change. So I'm going to go through some features of the core, as mentioned on the slide. Firstly, just to emphasize the fact that this call is an ERANET call. And how does an ERANET call function? We have several partners of the ERANET who can participate in the call, joining, funding in a common pot. And a very important point of this call is that we have a common evaluation. Clearly, we don't have separate evaluation per each partner. So this is an important point to point out. Regarding the partners participating in this call, we have 30 partners from 23 countries, a common pot of, in total, around 23 million euros, a part provided by the partners of the ERANET, and a contribution from European Commission, because we are here in the situation of a co-funding call. Another important features of the call is for sure the topic of the call. I'm going to tell you a little bit about. So the topic is, as I've already said, biodiversity and climate change. And as such, we have all environment eligible. What does it mean? All environment, it could be a project in marine field, or earth field, or freshwater, and so on. We have here three subtopics, but non-inclusive teams. Firstly, we can have a project devoted to the study of consequences of climate change on biodiversity and natural contribution to people. A second one dedicated to climate and biodiversity feedback processes. So We have effect on climate and biodiversity, but reversely also biodiversity on climate. A third potential topic could be the study of potential of nature-based solution for mitigation, adaptation, and climate change. And a fourth one devoted to synergies and trade-off between policies on biodiversity, climate, and other relevant sectors. Since, as we know, this topic on biodiversity and climate change has to be studied in a holistic and integrated approach, gathering different policies. So, few words about the type of project funded and expectations towards applicants. So, regarding the project, the size of expected is a project of medium size. I mean, with a budget on average and 1.2 million euro, and with an average partnership composed of 5 partners, but we can have less and more. Some evaluation criteria, keeping in mind that the score will be a 2-step score with 2-step evaluation, and as typical criteria, we will have for the step 1 the criteria here mentioned, how this project are going to fit to the scope of the core, will bring really a novelty aspect, scientific aspect on the research. Will they really bring transnational added value? Regarding the step 2, the criteria are well-known criteria, academic or, as you prefer, scientific excellence, quality and efficiency of the implementation related to the quality of the consortium, and the third criteria, expected impact of the project. So I'm not going to go through in details of this sub-criteria used for previous score launched and managed by Biodiversity Eranet. Since I work for a regional council, I have to emphasize societal impact, and among the list of criteria here, I will point it out the knowledge transfer methods and plans. I'm working at the interface between policymakers and scientists, and policymakers, for example, have to be considered as end user of your result. So this is an important point I wanted to emphasize. Time is running. So in sum, projects are expected to be scientifically excellent, multidisciplinary, and demonstrate a transnational added value. And for sure, the engagement of all stakeholders concerned is expected. So for this point, engagement of all stakeholders and demonstration of policy societal relevance, you can fully use 2 deliverables of Biodiversa, a book about engagement stakeholders, and the other one devoted to policy and social relevance. You can find this on Biodiversa website, of course. So very quickly, as I already mentioned, we have a 2-step call process. The first one mainly dealing with the eligibility check of the project, and first evaluation by an independent evaluation panel, and the second step where we would have the contribution of this evaluation panel, but also a panel of external reviewers. So some indication about the calendar. This call have been, the pre-announcement of this call has been made very recently last month. The official launch is planned for 2 September. The deadline of the submission of the pre-proposal in step 1 is 5 of November, and the deadline for the full proposal submission in 10 of April. So, regarding the eligibility criteria, just to emphasize this criteria linked to the composition of the consortium. Since we will really support involvement of research teams from our outermost region and OCTs, we have worked within Biodiversa to see how we can push for this. And we have here a concrete criteria, simplified criteria, I would say, since normally the number of countries expected is 3, but in the case we will have participation of teams from outermost region, the number of countries is diminished. Clearly, if we have 2 outermost regions of OTCs participating in this project, they are going to be counted as 2 countries. I don't know if I'm clear, but so this is a very important point. The duration of the project is typical 3 years. And I go, so regarding the financial rules, the research team will have to respect the rules of each partner, and these rules specific to each partner from outermost region or continental country will be published on Biodiversa website at the moment of the launching of the call. Yes. So another important tool is a tool for we will allow you to find partners in different regions, and from the data of our bases. So thank you for your attention for this call. I don't have time for MoveClim. Just to tell you that from NetBiome ERANET launch in 2010, we have a very good example of project funded. We have here the coordinator, or she left, Claudine Appeng. It was a project on how we can use bryophyte and ferns as indicators of climate change. And this was a very good example of broad partnership, gathering outermost region, OCTs from different countries, and also third countries like such like South of Africa, with very important and interesting outputs. You can look at MoveClim blog, the result of this very interesting project. Just to say that this was and this is a demonstration of capacity of our overseas countries and territories to build a very important project. So thank you and good luck for your future applications.
Thank you very much, Josiane, and thank you, everyone. We're going to leave the amphitheater to the next conference. Thank you very much.